Welcome, it is Mitch. I'm on YouTube. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel as we try to build this thing up, continuing our little mini-series here on Packers unrestricted free agents. This is part 2. We're going to look at 2 names today. Part 1, we did Romeo Doubs, Malik Willis. This video, we will talk about 2 of the big boys up front, Rasheed Walker, Sean Rhyan, both entering free agency as unrestricted free agents this offseason. What will the Packers do? What should the Packers do with both of them? We'll start with Rasheed Walker, starting left tackle for the last 3 years for Green Bay, former 7th-round pick. To get a good starting left tackle that you landed as a 7th-round pick, I've often said in the 7th round, you're not selecting players in the draft under the idea or under the premise of, we just landed a superstar, we just landed a future all-pro. Like in the 7th round, there's some traits that you like. There's maybe some whispers coming into your ear if you're Brian Gutekunst from the scouting department about player A, B, C. And so you're essentially taking a flyer on a prospect, on a player. Rasheed Walker was a 7th-round pick in 2022, and he molded into the starting left tackle for the Green Bay Packers the last 3 years. And I think it's a hell of a feather in the cap if you are Goody in the scouting department for Green Bay to have landed a starting left tackle, and a good starting left tackle. Is he great? Is he an all-pro? No. But Rasheed Walker is he's a durable starting left tackle in the National Football League. And to me, that is an incredibly great find by Green Bay, and they deserve credit for founding Rasheed Walker back in 2022. And keep in mind, Rasheed Walker at the time was taking over for David Bakhtiari, who, kept trying to return from the knee injury, and it never came to fruition, and his career ended after that, and the Packers ended up releasing him. He didn't sign on with another team, and I know many people will look back at that NFC Championship loss to Tampa Bay and wonder aloudly, if Green Bay had David Bakhtiari, do they win that conference championship? Do they then go to the Super Bowl and win it? And I know those are just tortured thoughts for me to even, bark out and put into your mind, so I apologize for that. But Rasheed Walker had the tough task of taking over as the starting left tackle for Green Bay and following in the footsteps of an all-pro in David Bakhtiari. That was not an easy situation for Rasheed Walker or whoever inherited it for Green Bay, and of course it ended up being Walker. Big shoes to fill. Rasheed Walker was not David Bakhtiari in his 3 years as the starting left tackle, but that's fine, and he was just fine as the starting left tackle for Green Bay. He being Rasheed Walker, 11th among 68 qualified tackles this past year in pass block win rate. That's the good. The bad, the run blocking's never been stellar. At times it's been below average. If you go by PFF's grading system and some other metrics for Rasheed Walker, he did allow a career-high 40 quarterback pressures this past year. It's not as though with that or the run game that it's ever been a disaster. Like I said, a good way of putting Rasheed Walker's 3 years as the starting left tackle for Green Bay is pretty good, but relatively unspectacular. And it was fine. That's how I think a lot of people will summarize it for Rasheed Walker. From the Packers' perspective and what's going to happen, I'm telling you right now, Rasheed Walker, he's gone. He will not be back with the Green Bay Packers. I would be stunned if that happened. There is no path to bringing back Rasheed Walker, given what the market will be for him as the top-ranked tackle by almost every outlet entering free agency, and knowing how coveted of a position that is at left tackle. Like Green Bay, I mentioned in part 1, talking about Romeo Doubs, Green Bay will not have the financial flexibility to get into bidding wars in free agency this offseason. In Rasheed Walker, again, whether you look at ESPN, where he's listed as I believe it was the 7th or 8th best free agent that will be on the market, and all these other outlets that have him listed as the top tackle, and it just so happens that it's left tackle, which is a premium position, the premium position up front, of course, on the offensive line. Rasheed Walker is going to go somewhere else. Someone's going to back up a Brinks truck, or at least a mini Brinks truck, for Rasheed Walker, and it will overtake any offer that Green Bay could send his way. On top of that, there's another important angle to this. Green Bay, whether they will bellow it out or not, it wants to hand the keys over to Jordan Morgan. Green Bay used a first-round pick on Jordan Morgan, who was primarily a left tackle in college at Arizona, and they selected Jordan Morgan with its first-round pick in 2024. And so far through 2 years, a player in Jordan Morgan who was a left tackle in college has played elsewhere on that right side of the line, but not at that premium spot at left tackle. Now, there was a training camp battle last summer between Rasheed Walker and Jordan Morgan. Rasheed Walker won that battle. Is that a bit concerning if you're the Packers? Knowing the part that Walker beat out Jordan Morgan and now Walker's going to be out the door and Jordan Morgan's going to be your starting left tackle. Maybe it's a bit concerning, but I don't put too much stock into it. Like, you look at Jordan Morgan's season that he just had, they tried it out at right guard. It was a mess. Like, Jordan Morgan right guard, no. But when Jordan Morgan was Jordan Morgan right tackle filling in for an injured Zach Tom, it was pretty good. And, there's a couple of clips that people have sliced out where there were a couple of bad reps. There was one particularly against the Bears. I don't think it was the playoff game. It was the game in Chicago a few weeks before the wild card matchup where Jordan Morgan just got bull rushed and completely ran over. And if you want to just look at a couple of clips that may have gone semi-viral in a bad sense for Jordan Morgan, you might have one perspective of him. But all in all, when he started at right tackle for Zach Tom, it was pretty good. Pretty good for Jordan Morgan. Now you're going to transition him to left tackle because Green Bay made the investment of a first-round pick in 2024. They have to see what they have in Jordan Morgan. And on top of that, even if they wanted to bring back Rasheed Walker, the Packers just absolutely positively cannot afford it. Now, if you look at, because we can talk about the dollars and cents, right? Spotrac has the market value of Rasheed Walker at $20 million. Green Bay can't afford that. Green Bay just handed over a 4-year, $77 million contract last offseason to Aaron Banks. And it included, was it 26, 27? I think it was definitely between 25 and 30 million in guaranteed money for Aaron Banks. They just backed up their own Brinks truck to fork out an extension, and a well-deserved one despite the injuries this year, to Zach Tom last year, entering this past season. And so Green Bay has checked its own boxes saying, we're going to pay Aaron Banks a hefty amount. We're going to pay Zach Tom a hefty amount. We still have Elton Jenkins under contract, and that's going to be a different video for a different day. We drafted Jordan Morgan in the first round. We drafted Anthony Belton last April in the second round. Rasheed Walker, for what he will command, Spotrac again saying it's going to be a market value of $20 million per, and they have his overall contract being somewhere around 4 years, $81 million. Green Bay can't afford that. And so the Packers, if you're a Packers fan and your thought process was, hey, I'd like to have Rasheed Walker back, I'm telling you to pivot off of that and to now just hope that, hey, hopefully there's a tug-of-war battle for Rasheed Walker between multiple suitors this offseason in free agency, because the Packers, I'm telling you point blank, cannot afford to bring back Rasheed Walker. They just can't. And so your hope, if you're Green Bay, is Rasheed Walker is gone. So hopefully there's multiple suitors running up the price for Rasheed Walker, because then you can get a compensatory pick of maybe a fourth rounder, maybe a third rounder if his price tag ends up being over 20, 21, 22 million a year. Then you're looking at maybe a compensatory pick of a third rounder for Rasheed Walker leaving Green Bay and signing with another team. And that's incredibly, incredibly valuable. Believe Aaron Banks got his 4 years, $77 million. I think it was 27 guaranteed. It was definitely between 25 and 30. That's going to drive me nuts that I don't have the exact number in front of me. But San Francisco, if I'm not mistaken, got a fourth round compensatory pick for Aaron Banks leaving San Francisco to come to Green Bay. And so if you're the Packers, you swallow the pill, as tough as it may be, and you accept the fate that Rasheed Walker is going to be gone, and you hope that the price just keeps getting driven up by multiple suitors, because you could end up netting a third-round compensatory pick for Rasheed Walker leaving. That's what the focus should be for Packers fans, revolving around the case study that we have right now with Rasheed Walker. And quite frankly, like, I have the same feelings about Rasheed Walker that I do about other Packers free agents in this group. Wish he could stick around. He's not an all-pro, but he is a durable starting left tackle. And those are always, 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 always going to be valued. There were never games going into it on any Sunday throughout the last 3 years when Rasheed Walker was the starting left tackle. There were matchups, certainly, where I was like, I'm interested to see how this looks. Like when Green Bay faced Cleveland last season, and you're wondering how often Myles Garrett is going to have that one-on-one matchup with Rasheed Walker. You're going into that thinking, it's a big day for number 63 for Green Bay's left tackle to step up and deliver a good performance. But there were never any games going into it the last 3 years where I ever even had a sliver of a thought that circulated around, oh no, like I'm worried about Rasheed Walker today. He's just not good. I don't like this matchup. And I can't say that for all the Packers starting offensive linemen the last few years. I don't mean to deliver a ricochet shot here, but I'm going to say it anyways. There were a hell of a lot of starts a few years ago where going into it, I was like, oh my gosh, not feeling great about Royce Newman's chances today. And there's other examples of that on the offensive line. Rasheed Walker, how did I say it? He's good, but it was just unspectacular. But it was fine. It was good, quality, durable. He was always in the lineup, starting left tackle play from Rasheed Walker. There were hiccups, sure, but nothing close to resembling utter chaos and a complete meltdown from him at that position. And so I'd like to see him stick around. It's not in the cards. And I know there was a recent airport arrest. Sounds like a misunderstanding on his part. If anything, I do not think it affects his free agency. Now, if you're the Packers, how you're turning the page is Rasheed Walker's going to walk. No pun intended. You hope the price tag gets driven up for your own draft pick compensation coming back next year. And then you cross your fingers and you hope that your first-round investment of Jordan Morgan in 2024 was the right one, because it will be Jordan Morgan's job as the starting left tackle in 2026. It is Mitch M on YouTube. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Always, always appreciative of all the support. One other name to talk about here, Sean Rhyan, also hitting unrestricted free agency. And so far in these two videos, we've had Romeo Doubs, who I said, financially Green Bay's not going to be able to do it. And they knew that. Green Bay knew this, that they weren't going to be able to keep around Watson, Reed, Wicks, and Dobbs, for all of them, for the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years, whatever. And so what did Green Bay do? Well, last offseason, or last April in the draft, first-round pick wide receiver Matthew Golden, third-round pick wide receiver Savion Williams. And so in that Part 1 video, if you haven't watched it yet, I'm going to ruin it a little bit for you, but you can still watch it for the details and what the market will say. But I told you, Romeo Doubs probably not coming back. Malik Willis definitely not coming back. And now I'm starting this video telling you Rasheed Walker definitely not coming back. Now we get to Sean Rhyan. Sean Rhyan is the most fascinating case study of the four names we've discussed in the two videos combined so far. It's pretty obvious, like I said, Rasheed Walker is going to be gone, Malik Willis, Romeo Doubs. They just can't afford Romeo Doubs. And then there is Sean Rhyan. And you have to ask the question, if Sean Rhyan isn't back as the starting center in 2026, and again, he's going to be an unrestricted free agent, so there's absolutely no guarantee that he will be back. But if Sean Rhyan is out the door, who the hell is the starting center for the Green Bay Packers next year? Elton Jenkins is very, very, very likely going to be a cap casualty. We all love Elton Jenkins and everything he has provided throughout numerous years, starting multiple positions up front. Damn near, has it been every position? Has he started all 5 positions at some point in time for Green Bay? I believe maybe so. But Elton Jenkins probably going to be a cap casualty this offseason. We love him, but the move to center didn't work quite as planned last year. He suffered a season-ending injury. If he's kept on the roster next year as is, he'll have the 4th highest cap hit on the team, while Green Bay can save close to $20 million if they release Elton Jenkins. And always, 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 always keep this in mind. Elton Jenkins sat out workouts last year because he wasn't thrilled about not having clarity on his future with the Packers beyond his current contract situation. He was clearly upset, and rightfully so. He wanted more financial security with a long-term extension. It didn't come his way. Do we think a year later, where now he's entering the final year of that deal, and there's still no clarity for him that he's going to be all chipper and smiles and happy? Probably not. If last year, with 2 years left on the deal, he was unhappy and has been given no clarity since, why would we expect him to come in this season? Now, to Elgton Jenkins' credit, he put it aside once the games were being played and was your starting center until he suffered a season-ending injury. But Elgton Jenkins is certainly not smitten about his contract situation. And when you just line up everything and get the ducks in a row, Elgton Jenkins is going to be a cap casualty for Green Bay this offseason. That takes out another name as a potential starting center. And so if Jenkins is gone, if Sean Rhyan's gone, do you really trust Jacob Monk, who will be entering his third year and has played 57 career snaps? Do you trust him as your starting center moving forward? I don't know about that. What I do know is I can look at Sean Rhyan, I can look at Green Bay's salary cap situation, and certainly find a pathway where Sean Rhyan fits into the budget and fits into the budget fairly comfortably for Green Bay. His market value, according to SportTrack, $6-7 million. I swear I didn't do that on purpose. The 6-7. His market value, that just clicked right as I said it. Let's just call it 6. Sean Rhyan's market value, according to SportTrack, is $6 million annually, with the understanding that he'll probably command a 2, maybe 3-year deal in free agency for around less than 20 million, like around 18, 19 million total. And so think of it this way too. If Sean Rhyan walks, and we're almost certain Rasheed Walker's gone, and we're almost certain Elgton Jenkins will be a cap casualty, if Sean Rhyan leaves, that is 3 of your 5 starting linemen from week 1 that started the season gone in one offseason for Green Bay. That's a lot to replace. You already know you're replacing Rasheed Walker, but you're replacing him with a 2024 first-round pick who looked comfortable at right guard, looked comfortable at right tackle, not so much right guard. But now you're plugging Jordan Morgan into his natural position at left tackle. But it's still replacing a 3-year starter in Rasheed Walker. If you're replacing Sean Rhyan, you're replacing someone who was a primary starting right guard and then moved over to center once Elgton Jenkins was gone, and Elgton Jenkins was your starting center. That was the plan all along. You'd be replacing 3 of your 5 starters from a year ago. That is not necessarily a healthy situation for Green Bay. And so I just look at all of that and how Sean Rhyan could certainly be affordable for Green Bay and how the Packers love versatility, not just amongst offensive linemen, but across the board. The more hats you can wear, the better. Has it always worked out in a splendid fashion for Green Bay? No. But they love versatility. Sean Rhyan has primarily, when he's been the starter, been your starting right guard, but hell, when he pivoted and moved to the starting center spot once Elgton Jenkins was gone, Sean Rhyan looked better as a starting center than a starting right guard. And so the versatility he has certainly bodes well for his chances for the Packers to open up some negotiation windows and try to bring him back and keep him in the green and gold. And let's just say in some world, let's just say in a hypothetical here, Sean Rhyan gets re-signed. And let's say it's 2 years, $12.5 million. And in some world, Jacob Monk this summer wildly exceeds expectations and wins the starting job at center. Sean Rhyan is still an incredible depth piece to have. And maybe he then moves to your starting right guard spot, unless you being the Packers, if you want that reserved for Anthony Belton, who did most of that dirty work to finish out the season at right guard. The point is, you re-sign Sean Rhyan at an affordable price that works for you and works for him. You probably have your starting center for the next couple of years under the assumption it's not just a 1-year deal. And even if in some, if it's a fantasy world kind of idea that Jacob Monk burst onto the scene and things finally start to click in year 3, well, then you have a guy in Sean Rhyan who could play center if need be in a backup spot, maybe starts at right guard. He can bounce around that offensive line. But he really took the center role and ran with it. At guard, it was fine. At center, it was just a tad better. Like, similar to Rasheed Walker, we aren't talking about an all-pro or all hands on deck. We must, at all cost, keep Sean Rhyan in the equation. It's not that for Green Bay, but he was just flat out a solid starting center for the Packers. And if nothing else, this offensive line needs depth. The money will talk loudest. Someone could throw funny money the way of Sean Rhyan, and it wouldn't be overly surprising. But he very well may be back in Green Bay on, like I said, we could call it a 2-year deal, around $6 million annually. Of the 4 names we've discussed, Sean Rhyan to me, and maybe it's not the name you were hoping for out of the 4, because I think most would say, man, I'd love to have Romeo Doubs back. Man, Jordan Love has missed some starts each of the last 2 years, and Malik Willis has been really damn good. I'd love to have him back as the QB too. Man, left tackles are a coveted position. I'd love to have Rasheed Walker back. So maybe Sean Rhyan isn't, the top of the checklist among the free agents that Green Bay has to try to filter through and work out in-house. But to me, he's, of the 4 we've discussed so far, because next week we're going to talk Quay Walker, Kingsley, and Egbari. Of the 4 we've discussed so far, Sean Rhyan to me is certainly the most realistic option to return for the Packers, and I would not be surprised. Because if he walks, Elton's probably gone, Rasheed's probably gone. 3 of your 5 starters from week 1 a year ago and 1 offseason all playing elsewhere. Not exactly a recipe that you're striving for if you're Green Bay. So we'll see. Let me know what you guys and gals think. I'm always appreciative of all the support. Please click the subscribe button. Takes 3 seconds to do so. Costs you nothing. Helps me a lot as I build up the channel. It is Mitch. I'm on YouTube. We'll see you next time.